Kopi Dulu, friends, gather around and grab your coffee. It's time for the story of how the tarot cards saved my life. That and our Sunday morning spread for the week to come, coming right up. Brian Noe with you from Cards of Light. Thank you for joining me once again this week. For our Sunday morning spread, we will have our card reading for the week to come, coming up in a little bit. Also wanted to talk a little bit this time about how the tarot cards saved my life. We'll get to that in just a moment. First off, if you are new here, please subscribe to this channel so you'll get all of our latest content as soon as it comes out. And also, if you wouldn't mind to give this video a thumbs up when you get a chance, I would appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay. Last week, when I talked about the easiest way to learn the tarot, I mentioned in that video that the tarot cards saved my life. And I said, well, that's maybe a story for another time. Well, this is the other time. So I've talked about this before on the channel and certainly on the weblog. I've written about this a lot, but thought it was maybe time to revisit the story for anybody that's new to these videos, and just kind of talk a little bit about how I got started with the tarot and what it's done in my life. So I'm in my early 60s, and at the time this story begins. And here is the state of my general health and well-being. First of all, I was overweight, probably 75, 80, 90 pounds, maybe 100 pounds overweight. I had chronic pain, and had had it for years, mostly lower back issues, but also joint pain and other things of that nature. And it was just a part of life. It was just constant nagging pain, even on a good day. Most days before my first cup of coffee, I would start with an Alka-Seltzer and a Tylenol, just on general principles, to keep the back pain mostly at bay for starters in the day. And then later on in the day, I'd have an Aleve, or sometimes I would have prescription meds that I would have to take. Sometimes even muscle relaxants and that kind of stuff as well, to deal with the pain in a way that I could just carry on the normal activities of life. And I just thought this was normal. Well, you get older, you have pain, and you take stuff for it, and that's okay. I also had high blood pressure, was on prescription meds for that for more than a decade. I was also a heavy daily drinker for probably 4 decades. And my usual routine at this point was at the end of the workday, I would get out my martini shaker and have a couple martinis, and then I would have some wine after that. Sometimes I'd end up the evening with scotch and water and that sort of thing, but drank pretty heavily pretty much every day, day in and day out for years. If you were around me, most of the time you probably wouldn't say, boy, that guy's had too much to drink. You might not even notice that I'd been drinking. It was what I refer to as a high functioning drunk. But nonetheless, I was drinking pretty heavily and pretty much all the time. And of course, that contributed to the chronic pain, that contributed to the obesity and all of that. And you wouldn't probably be surprised at this point to learn that I also suffered from depression during this time and had for years and years and years. And I'd gotten to the point where I managed that pretty well. I could spot an episode coming on most of the time, and was able to just say, okay, you're going to be miserable for a few days, but then it'll get better. And so I would just kind of ride it out. And that had been going on for years and years and years as well. I'm sure that I was not fun to be around a lot of times. And I was not having fun a lot of times. But I thought that this was just sort of the way life was, and especially for people in my age group that as we got older, the habits of a lifetime just kind of caught up with us, and there you go. Uh, it's not that my life was without joy and happiness, though, either. I loved my family, uh, did have really good times, but just had all of these things that I've just mentioned as kind of the background going on all the time in my life. Um, and I was just sort of waiting around to die. Wasn't hoping to die, did not think that death was imminent, but uh, figured that I didn't have too many years left. I figured maybe 5 years, maybe 10 if I was really lucky, and that during that time I would get progressively, you know, less well, less mobile, in more pain, more misery, and that kind of stuff. And then sooner or later I would just be gone, and that was it. And I thought I was done learning things and trying new things and doing exciting things and achieving things and all of that. It's like, well, that's for the next generation to do now, and I'm done. That was sort of it. And again, I thought this was normal. I didn't see any of this really as a problem. I just thought it was the normal course of life, and that accepting all of that was just, the smart thing to do. Uh, so in early 2019, my child, I had a teenager at the time, and they were really into Panic at the Disco, and there was a new album that had come out. And one of the songs was Dying in LA. And there was a line on that song, you looked at death in a tarot card and you saw what you had to do. And this song was on repeat, and this album was on repeat in our household for quite a while. And finally, one day I said, hey, kid, have you ever seen a tarot deck? And they said, well, no, I don't think so. And I said, well, I think I've got one somewhere. And I had gotten a deck in Joan Bunning's book, Learn the Tarot, uh, maybe 15 years before that, just out of curiosity. And I kind of took a quick look at it and then thought, oh, well, I'll get to that sooner or later, and then stuffed it in a box and kind of forgot about it. But so now the song comes out. I thought, oh, I'll show that to kids. So I went looking for it, and sure enough, found it, got it out, and this time was really curious. And I was like, I don't know why I didn't really get interested in this before. Maybe I'll take another look. And so I started reading the book, and I took the advice of the book, which is what I described last week on the best way to learn the tarot, and started pulling a card a day and learning a little bit about the card and journaling a little bit about the card. And did not have any intentions, did not have any plans, wasn't trying to do anything, I just was curious and thought, oh, this might be interesting. And that practice took me on this incredible journey of self-discovery and self-improvement, and helped me to kind of confront the issues of my entire life. It was just this very strange thing, just pulling these cards, learning about them, taking some time to reflect, and writing down a few words every day, made me start looking at my life, and looking at my life in context, looking at my life in terms of the whole picture for over 60 years. My habits, my upbringing, my general philosophy towards life, my assumptions about life and what we were doing here and all of that. And it prompted me, I almost said forced me, but it really was gentler than that. It just prompted me to take a look at all of that stuff and to think about it deeply. and to get quiet enough uh, to to kind of begin to work on all of those things. Very subtle at first, but led me to some incredible things like, I wonder what would happen if I just didn't drink anymore, uh, which was not a thought that had ever occurred to me before. I'd had thoughts like, oh, I better quit drinking, or oh, this is bad for me, I should stop. But never just, I wonder what would happen if I just didn't do that anymore. Uh, so, for instance, in the case of that, that's what I did. I just didn't drink anymore. And so a year later, so this was again February in 2019 was when I did my first card draw. Uh, by January of 2020, uh, I had already lost 50 pounds, been sober for nearly a year, uh, much healthier. My blood pressure was down to normal without any medication. I was off the meds, uh, wasn't taking even the over the counter medications to amount to anything anymore. Um, episodes of depression were fewer, further between, and less severe when they came. Um, Obviously, if you know anything about that disease, that's not the sort of thing that at least most people, I think, can ever be cured from. It's a predisposition in us, but it got a lot better than just, oh, well, I'll manage this. It just got much, much, much better, much less severe, much less often, much easier to cope with. And I think not just for me, but also for the people around me. Uh, I started learning new things, uh, started getting involved in interesting projects, started meditating, uh, started really diving into making music again and other creative pursuits and things like that. And just in general, started enjoying my life a whole lot more. And again, not that there wasn't some enjoyment and some happiness and that sort of thing before, but just really got to the point where I started waking up every day looking forward to the day instead of looking forward to my first martini of the day. And all from beginning to draw a tarot card a day. And since that time, I mean, I've continued to lose weight. I've started running again, just all kinds of cool things. Started really focusing on poetry. Published a book of poems. Devoted time to this YouTube channel and to some music projects and things like that as well. Uh, and just am enjoying life. And I don't know, this is pushing 70 now. I don't know how much longer I have to live. Uh, it's not like you can make these changes in your life and then say, oh, well, now I'm going to live forever. I mean, who knows? We get older and we go. That's the way things work. But with whatever time that I've got left, I don't want to ever be finished. I don't want to be done and say, well, I'm just waiting around to die. Uh, when that happens, I hope that I will just go if I ever get to that point. Um, the other thing is, I'm not afraid of that now. And I would have told you uh, before all of this transition happened that I wasn't afraid then either, but I really think I was just terrified of dying, uh, feeling like I was kind of never going to get finished. I was never really going to have a complete life somehow. There was something missing. Now I don't feel like that at all. Uh, I'm I am thankful to be here. I'm grateful for my family and for all of the wonderful things that I've experienced in life so far and the things that are yet to be experienced. It just is a wonderful, wonderful time to be alive, despite everything that's going on in the world. So here we are, and we can love each other, we can be kind to each other, we can work together for peace, uh, we can do fun, creative things, and what a life. And that sort of was not my attitude before. So that is kind of the Reader's Digest condensed version of how the tarot cards saved my life. I'd like to hear what you think about this, or any kind of similar experiences that you have had, ways that these cards or these practices have impacted your life. Um, One of the reasons that I am passionate about this YouTube channel and about sharing these cards with friends and that sort of thing is because of the impact that it's had on my life. I don't think maybe it would have had to have been tarot. I think that I was ready for a change and that it just happened to kind of be the tarot cards. But they certainly are very powerful and for me worked, and I think worked better than like counseling or some other things like that might have worked for me, although I know those things work really well for other people. So, anyway, would love to hear your observations or your stories. You can leave comments here with the video or visit the weblog if you want a little more private conversation. My contact information is there. atarotjourney.com is the address for that. And let's go to the table now for our tarot card reading for the week. Welcome back to my tarot table for the Sunday morning spread for the week of August 24th, 2025. We're looking at the four dimensions of life. And once again, this week we're using the Thoth Tarot deck. And we have four majors this week. So here in the physical dimension, we have the Empress. In the social emotional, we have the Chariot. In the mental dimension, we have the Fortune card. And up here in the spiritual dimension, we have the Tower. So let's take these one at a time in turn. In the physical dimension, interesting that this card, the Empress, has turned up 2 weeks in a row in that dimension. And so this is the card, as we discussed last week, of creativity, of nature, of that nurturing great mother energy. And I'll stick with the interpretation that I shared last week, that this is a cue to get outside, get out in the fresh air, get out in the sunshine as much as we can this week. Let's try to spend time in green spaces, get out and take a walk, try to do our best to remember that we are not separate from the natural world, that we spring from the natural world, that we are inextricably bound to the natural world. We may spend much of our time inside climate-controlled boxes, but that is just a very thin veneer, and we are part of this natural world, and we need to remember that. The more that we can remember that, the more we will prosper, the more we will take care of our natural resources, and the healthier, happier we will be. So let's try our very best to do that this week. I wonder if we didn't get the message last week is why this has turned up again. Here where I live in the United States, we are entering those last lush days of summer, finally getting a break from the heat. And so it ought to be a good week, at least for us here in the central Midwest of the United States, to get out and do that. But wherever you are, try and get connected. Try and get connected to the earth and to nature this week to come. Okay, over here in the social emotional dimension of our lives, we have the Chariot card. And this is the card of victory. It is the card of kind of a victory lap. And the reason that we are victorious is because of what the charioteer is bearing here, which is the Holy Grail. When we get into the deepest part of ourselves, when we connect with the reason that we are here in what we experience as material reality, not just why we're all here, but when we connect with our own personal reason for being here, and we bear that into the world, then victory is assured to us. As spiritual beings having this human experience, we come here, we find our purpose, we do what we have to do, we do what we came here to do, and then we return home victorious. And so that is kind of the spirit of this card, coming as it does in the social emotional dimension of our lives. I would say that we need to trust that. We need to get in touch with that deeper purpose and meaning, and that will help with our emotional balance and health, and it will also help with our relationships. I'm getting the sense that somebody here is struggling with the tension between finding that and following that calling to the higher self and some of the relationships, and some of the people that are kind of not on board with that, at least at the moment. We have to make a choice. Let's be true to ourselves. Let's be true to our purpose, and people will either get on board with that or they won't. But we really cannot afford, as short as life is, to let those considerations and those attachments get in our way. And I know it's difficult. I know it is really, really difficult sometimes, to put first things first. But in the long run, we need to remain aligned with that. So that's the call from this card this week. And good luck. If this is resonating with you, I'd like to hear what it's about. Okay, up here in the middle dimension, we have the Fortune card. And this card throughout the year this year has turned up a bunch, and it's turned up in that position in the mental dimension of our lives. And I will just say it again. This is the card that reminds us that although things constantly change here in what we experience as material reality, things, there are ups, there are downs, round and round and round, everything always changing, despite how hard we work sometimes to convince ourselves that things aren't changing. And we finally made it. We finally gotten where we want to go, and then things get thrown up in the air again, which we'll see in a moment here with this Tower card. But it can make us dizzy if we're focusing on all of this stuff going around and around here. If we stick to this center, this still point, this quiet place deep inside us, where we know our purpose, where we connect with that, where we connect with ourselves as an aspect of the universal. We connect with the truth. We connect with the light that is at the center for all of us. Then all of this stuff whirling around us doesn't faze us, because we have that security knowing that we are perfect, loving, light, eternal spirits. And that as much as we may experience things in this material world that we feel are unpleasant, in the long run, they can't touch us. They can't touch that part of us that is real and true and eternal. So coming in the mental dimension of our lives, I think that this is just, it's good to bear that in mind, but we also need to do some daily practices that bring us closer to that realization day after day after day. Pick your own. For me, that is meditation and devotional chanting. It may vary for you, but do something every day to connect with that deep, quiet, perfect part of yourself and to connect with your purpose here in life. And then all of the other things just kind of grow dim. It's not that they aren't there. It's not that things don't phase us, but they sure become less important when we have that deep knowing and that deep experience of something that is beyond this material world. So however you can get to that, do your best to do that this week. Get your mind still and experience that quiet and that peace. Because we have the tower here in the spiritual dimension, very much like the death card, which I think turned up in that dimension last week. Maybe we didn't get that message, that there are things there are attachments that we need to get behind us here. And I think I said last week that if we don't leave those behind, they're going to leave us behind. Well, now that moment appears to be coming with this Tower card. This is the card of everything being topsy-turvy, up in the air, maybe unexpected changes that we just weren't prepared to cope with, did not, by any stretch of the imagination, anticipate. And now they're here, and they've kind of knocked us back on our heels, and we have to reassess everything in order to figure out how to move forward. And coming as this does in the spiritual dimension of our lives, the best advice that I can give is, if you have a tower moment like this week, take it, please, as an opportunity to understand the attachments that are no longer serving you, and to forge a path forward for yourself that does emphasize this stuff here, that emphasizes the important things, the reason that you are here on this earth. So, kind of a daunting spread if you want to look at it that way. Really super key to connect with the earth this week and with nature, and to be outside as much as we can. We really, really need to stay connected with our purpose and with the light that we can bring to this world, and the light that we were born to bring to this world. We need to stay close to this still point here. And come what may this week, we need to remember that we are safe, secure, eternal, and that it is those things, no matter how we get caught up, all of us from time to time, in the mundane, everyday things that are going on. It is really those deeper truths, those deeper realities that in the long run matter. When we are years gone from these bodies, what we have done to stay close to this light and to bury it in the world will be what remains. That's the way I would see these cards. Well, I believe that will pretty much do it for this week. Again, subscribe to this channel if you haven't. Like this video if you would, please. Appreciate that very much. We will be back again next week. And in the meantime, as always, I wish you peace. Take care of yourself.